The next speaker we've got for you is Chris Harris. Chris has been a Greens councillor on the City of Sydney since 2004. So he's been well aware of what the City of Sydney can and should do in terms of delivering clean, green, renewable energy for its residents. And I'd ask Chris to come and speak to you about what the perspective from the City of Sydney is, particularly from a Greens councillor in the City of Sydney. Chris Harris.
Good afternoon. Thanks very much for coming out today. Just so we're really clear about where we're coming from here with coal seam gas, is that the Greens want a moratorium on the exploration and production of coal seam gas right now in New South Wales, a moratorium where we're not going to do anything about that until we get proper independent study of the implications, the environmental implications and the economic indications of that coal seam gas. And I'd ask you, whether you're a resident of the City of Sydney or you're a resident of Marrickville Council, to demand of your local member, your federal member, that they do not carry out any exploration for coal seam gas here in your home, okay, until this is proven to be of merit. One of the problems with coal seam gas is that it's actually not necessarily going to reduce our emissions, because just getting the gas will virtually eliminate all the advantages of using it. And it's also a big distraction from what we need to do, which is to stop using fossil fuels and start to use renewable energy. That's the distraction. Our efforts ought to be going into developing local and statewide and nationwide sources of renewable energy. Solar PV at the local level, solar thermal, wind, hydropower and geothermal power, and emerging technologies as well on a broader level. That's where our effort should be going. That's where the investment should be going. It shouldn't be going in to propping up companies like Apollo Gas, which incidentally is a subsidiary of a giant corporation called Macquarie Energy that has exploration permits over much of this state. So we're talking about big money here, and the big question is, are the politicians acting in your interests or the interests of Macquarie Energy? That's the question. And I'd ask you to ask that question of your local representatives. The second thing I want to talk about is from the City of Sydney. City of Sydney has released lots of information about a tri-generation master plan. Now, tri-generation, the reason that produces a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions is because it's very efficient. So what happens is one spin of the wheel gets you power, hot water and air conditioning instead of three separate processes. So if you just think about that, there's big reductions in energy use and big reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. But let me assure you that my colleague and I, Irene Doubtney, who's here today, she's over there somewhere. Hi Irene, thanks for coming along. We will use every resource possible to ensure the City of Sydney does not use 1 kilogram of coal seam gas, because coal seam gas is unknown, it's unregulated and it's unsafe. The objective of the City of Sydney should be, with the tri-generation plan, to use eventually a synthetic gas which is produced from the treatment of waste. There is enough waste generated in the City of Sydney to do that, and that's the eventual goal. But in the short term, they will use some natural gas, but not coal seam gas. So I'll just finish up by asking you to do a couple of things. First of all, but just before I do that, this letter was circulated to the locals here yesterday, and I presume everybody who lives nearby has got one. This is called consultation. I'll just read you the first paragraph. It says, "You may be aware through recent press that Apollo Gas intends to undertake exploratory drilling in the St Peters area." That's consultation, by the way. May we? No, we intend to do it. And then it proceeds, this letter then proceeds to produce a whole bunch of misleading information for 3 pages about coal seam gas. Much of the stuff in this letter is not supported by fact or any sort of independent investigation. Much of it is just big company spin. That's what it is. So what I'd like you to do before you go today is there's over in the little hut here, there's a list there where you can put your email address, put your name and your email address. We will do an analysis of this letter. We only got this yesterday, in fact, Glenda got this yesterday in her letterbox. We'll do an analysis of this letter and we'll produce what we think about coal seam gas and what we think about Apollo Gas's letter. And if you'd like to see that, please put your email address down there, and we'd encourage you to send this to everybody you know. The way to make this whole movement, if you like, a powerful one, is to inform people about the facts. Lots of people don't understand this, but I think when people do, they'll be pretty concerned about what's proposed. Just to finish off, they say the St Peters area was chosen as a likely exploration site primarily to follow up on previous drilling. Who here knew about the previous drilling? Anybody? Nobody. So this is consultation, this is working with the community, this is a disgrace, and we should demand a better performance by our government, both the current government and the incoming government. They need to take care of this because this is dangerous stuff. Thanks very much.